Hi, Judge Andrew Napolitano here, and you are on Freedom Watch with my good friend and Fox colleague, all the way from the mountains of West Virginia to being Fox News digital politics editor. All things political explained clearly and succinctly, Chris Stirewalt. So here's my issue, Chris, and you and I have talked about this so many times. Why is it the job of the federal government to provide health care for those who do not have it?
Well, it's not in the Constitution, and no matter how hard you squint, but by custom and practice, starting with, if you think about it this way, we start with Social Security, we start with, then we add Social Security Part 2, we add Medicare to that, and then Medicaid comes in, and pretty soon you have entitlement programs and welfare programs that there is no political appetite for even a reduction to the increase. If you think about what's being talked about now, everybody's focused on spending sides, everybody's talking about numbers, but you're right. The basic discussion about is this the purview of the federal government, or even this, does the federal government do a good job at doing this? Is it even from a beyond a constitutional point of view, practically speaking, is this something the federal government's even good at? That ship started sailing under Franklin Roosevelt, and I would argue that by the time Obamacare got passed, it cemented in the American public consciousness and now is being ratified by the Republican Party that, yes, this is the purview of the federal government.
Did Barack Obama succeed beyond his wildest dreams in causing the public policy of the country, embraced by just about everybody except Tom Massey and Rand Paul and maybe Mike Lee and Justin Amash, those really small government people, but certainly the leadership of the Republican Party, that it is the duty of the federal government to do something to provide health care for people that don't want it or can't afford it? Did Barack Obama succeed in causing that to happen with finality?
Yes, I think so. I think that in terms of the idea of health, now we have to be careful about terminology here. Health care, not so much. Health insurance as a basic right, that it is the federal government's job. So we have, as you often talk about, so the Constitution deals in negative rights and curbs limitations on what the government can do and forbids the government from certain behaviors and actions. This is a positive right that they say you, Judge Napolitano, have a right to have health insurance, and the federal government is obliged to meet you in that space.
Right.
And that is something that we have not seen before. But remember, the Republican Party is in transition. The Republican Party is moving away from its traditional base of more affluent suburban voters and moving toward a base that is populist in nature and a base that happens to include more white working class, blue-collar voters. These are folks, especially in older age register, that have a lot of economic insecurity, especially around getting health care. And as it turns out, if you have the New Deal coalition, you will be the New Deal party. That's just how that works.
Is there any room in the Republican Party remaining for the attitude that this can be done a lot more efficiently, less expensively, and more broad-based if done by the free market rather than by the same people that can't deliver the mail?
Well, when you put it like that, I'll put it like this: failure often begets lazy, shoddy, cut-corner work, and that may be exactly what many in Congress like. People have pointed out that the Republicans had 7 or 8 years to put together a health care plan.
Right.
And it's not like there weren't things on offer. It's not like the Cato Institute or the American Enterprise Institute or the Heritage Foundation or other think tanks hadn't been, or the Hoover Institution hadn't come up with ideas that were conservative alternatives, the kinds of things that you're talking about that bring these market-based solutions to play. It's not like they didn't have time to do it, but the fact that they did not do it and did not reach a consensus and had a presidential nominee who got elected who was not bought into any particular plan at all means that at the end, what you have to do is, we're out of time, we're out of time, we're out of time.
Okay.
We did nothing for 7 years. Now we're in a rush, and we've got to do something.
So why is it that some of the very people who forcefully argued against and gleefully voted against Obamacare now cannot bring themselves to vote to undo it?
Well, because they don't have an opportunity to undo it. That's not what's being offered. There's no offer out there on the table right now for anybody to vote for the repeal of Obamacare. That's not it. Because remember,
because leadership is afraid to offer that.
Well, the leadership's afraid to offer it. I'm sure that Rand Paul, and my apologies to Senator Paul, I'm sure that he has a bill. I'm sure Ted Cruz has a bill. I'm sure that there are ideas. Yes, ultimately the leadership would blockade that kind of legislation, but even if they didn't, it would only get a handful of votes, because the main concern now is, again, they're out of time. So what do you do about the 20 million Americans who are in the individual insurance market? What do you do about the fact that these folks are going to get marooned as insurers continue to flee the Obamacare marketplace?
All right, last question. You know from history that Hamilton and Jefferson rarely agreed at anything, but they did agree on this: when the public treasury becomes a public trough, and the voters learn this, they will only send to Washington people that will promise to bring back the biggest piece of the pie. Are we seeing that happen under our noses with health care?
I think we've seen that happen not just under health care, but under a number of things. Hamilton and Jefferson disagreed about what man's basic state was. Is man good or bad?
Right.
What is our basic nature? But one thing that they were agreed upon was that government becomes an end unto itself, because when it gets into the wish fulfillment business of trying to meet human needs as opposed to protecting human rights, once it gets into that, it's going to go, 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 baby.
And here we are today. Chris Starwell, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. From New York, defending freedom whenever they let me, Judge Andrew Napolitano. See you next time, America.